Welcome to this series of interviews with innovators in cardiac surgery. My name's Joel Dunning, and I'm delighted to be here with two amazing innovators. I'm here with Professor Tom Treasure, who many of you will know, and I'm here with somebody who none of you will know, Tal Goldsworthy. Thank you very much for coming. Now, Tal, you've got Marfan syndrome. You're an engineer, and you've innovated and done something truly unique. But first of all, before we talk about that, I just wanted to hear from you. What is it like having Marfan's, and even more particularly, when you found you might need to have an operation?
Well, of course, my reality is Marfan. I don't know the normal reality, so I'm not really qualified to comment. But for me as a youngster, it meant long, thin bones that were frequently fracturing when I was falling over. It also meant very poor visual acuity due to my sublux lenses. It wasn't actually until I was in my mid-30s that my aortic root was measured. And having led what to me was a perfectly normal life involving all sorts of the normal activities, it was quite a shock to realise that my aorta was significantly dilated, that I had no sense of it. I guess there are no tactile nerve endings in one's aorta that would let one know until it dissects. It was a hell of a shock, actually, to find out that I was dilated and that I was facing some fairly serious surgery.
And you went to go and see a surgeon, and what did they tell you that you needed?
I attended a genetic study at St George's in Tooting, and they measured my aortic root diameter annually, and on the second anniversary they talked me through the total root replacement surgery. And you know, I was quite dismayed, perhaps not horrified, but quite dismayed, seriously dismayed at the degree of invasion that this surgery would represent.
What horrified you most? Was it the surgery, or was it having warfarin? Or?
Well, in fact, it was. I mean, the surgery is pretty grim. Speaking as a deer stalker, not a cardiothoracic surgery, I regularly do midline stenotomies on deer carcasses and empty them. And when you watch a YouTube total root replacement operation, it's frighteningly similar to the emptying out of a deer carcass. And it really is quite a grim thought. But the lifetime anticoag really filled me with horror.
And Tom, you've done a bit of research on what Marfan's patients really feel about this impending operation that they may have.
Yes, that's correct. We've done a study with some psychologists who work at the Institute of Psychiatry in London, and they set up focus groups and talked to young people, you know, they'd be their 20s and 30s in the main, who'd experience of before and after having their aortic roots dealt with. And with me absent and the psychologists finding out, their concern was to avoid anticoagulation, to be able to become pregnant and have children, to play sport, but central to it all was to not be cast in a sick role. They didn't want to be seen as somebody's patient on tablets. They just wanted to be themselves. And they felt that very strongly.
So, Tal, what did you do about it?
Well, I attended, say, annual aortic root measurements for about 12 years and decided that I really didn't want a total root replacement operation. Incidentally, I was not made aware of valve-sparing root replacement surgery at that time. So I just said, well, I can do better than this. So I went along to the Marfan Association Information Day at George's in 2000, where Tom was presenting on aortic root surgery. And when he finished, I said to him, well, why aren't we scanning the aorta, using computer-aided design to manufacture a model, using rapid prototyping to manufacture a former, and then producing a perfectly fitting, bespoke external support to manage the tensile loads in the ascending aorta? And that's how it all began, and we just run from there.
And so from there, you've designed something
for
yourself.
I mean, as a team. I mean, it's been a team effort. I mean, I started a company and put the money together, put a proposal together. Tom, who was then moving out of cardiothoracic surgery into thoracic, engaged John Pepper to help us. I got into bed with Imperial College to do some of the CAD engineering work, because I'm not a CAD engineer, I'm a process engineer. And then we developed a perfectly fitting external support.
And I believe you've got one with you.
And it just so happens. This is a support made of a very, very light fabric based on the Dacron chemical, though the textile solution is very different to conventional aortic grafts. The device is sitting on a rapid prototype model of an aorta, and this acts as a manufacturing former and imparts its shape into the fabric. So we actually present the surgeon with this device as it stands. He then opens this axial seam, cuts into it to make some accommodations for the coronaries, and then installs it around the aorta, right from below the sinuses up to the brachiocephalic.
And Tom, how difficult is this to fit in somebody?
Well, it's serious surgery, but surgeons familiar with operating in the root and, for example, doing a Ross operation are able to do it. John Pepper refined the surgery and worked out, and most of the operations are done off bypass, and he and others can do it. It is quite difficult because I think one of the here is an example rather like towels. This mesh comes right off the former and is opened along there and is put around the aorta, but it has to go right down to the aortoventricular junction below the coronary orifices, and that dissection below the left coronary is the danger point, and it has caused trouble once. But other than that, they've all been done very successfully. We have used a short period of cardiopulmonary bypass, TAL being the first had a period of bypass and 2 or 3 others, but it is a safety measure which we would use. But then the mesh is brought round the coronaries, which with little asterisks in here so that there's no edge. It's very soft, it's very pliant, and it becomes incorporated in the adventitia.
So, Tal, I'm fascinated to hear how you can invent something like this in your own backyard, and how you can bring that all the way to just get an operation yourself. I mean, what were the hurdles you had to overcome? I mean, do you have to get CE mark approval for something like this, or what do you do?
No, I mean, you know, needs must when the devil drives. When you're as motivated as I was, you get over every hurdle. We had to organise a scanning routine. We had to organise a CAD routine. Warren Thornton wrote the CAD routine for us, which is very, very specific for this task. You have to then produce a manufacturing process. I, in fact, reviewed and developed 3 manufacturing processes until we ended up with the one we're using. So that the engineering parts are really just standard research and development engineering, which is my stock in trade. Perhaps one of the more difficult hurdles was to get ethical approval, which, bless him, John Pepper worked very hard on and got the approval for. It was a very long and very, very tough journey, and the biggest problem probably for me was the intellectual paralysis that you suffer when you're facing your aorta dilating. You know, is it going to dissect? You don't know. Probably not, but you don't know. But it's very, very difficult to maintain focus and maintain a rational, reasoned approach when you're as terrified as you ought to be at the thought of a serious aortic problem.
Because it actually took you 4 years, didn't it?
Yeah, from first meeting Tom until the first operation on me was a 4-year period. Yeah.
Yeah, and so since then you had how was the operation? Were you in hospital?
Delightful. No, delightful. I do enjoy temazepam. I could get into that as a recreational drug. No, it was pretty straightforward. John put the first one on me, checked the valve function and coronary flow with TOE. Wasn't happy with the first one, took it off, put me on bypass to have better control over my blood pressure. Put the second one on, was happy, so I had a 4.5-hour op, and I felt pretty good. I mean, I was in hospital a week. I was a 47-year-old, so a relatively old patient. But I was fine after that, and since then we've done another 44 patients. And bar one, everybody is doing very well. Yeah.
And I think one patient died of non-root-related causes, but you have looked very carefully at their aorta, haven't you?
Yes. So of the patients who had this surgery for Marfan syndrome, we had the first death following surgery about a year ago. So it was 4.5 years after his operation, and he had a post-mortem, and there was no blood in the pericardium, no dissection. The aortic valve had a very trivial leak, as it had all along. And the death was believed on very good grounds to be a mixture of Marfan-related myopathy and arrhythmia, which was the same thing as his mother died of. But the pathologist said that the aorta within the supported segment had normal histology. And the aorta further round in the arch did have the appearances of a Marfan aorta. And you'd expect it to be the other way round, that the root would be the worst. So if that can be believed, it looks as though the support has in some way relieved the repetitive strain injury and allowed healing. And that paper will, the case report, will be in the journal shortly, we hope.
So at the moment, we've got 45 patients. You've had, yourself is the longest since 2004 till now, so 10 years. And how many surgeons have done this, and what do you think the future is for this procedure?
We've currently got about 6 surgeons offering the treatment.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
it's
about
that
6 doing it at the moment.
There's 4 hospitals can offer this at present. 1 in Belgium and 3 in Britain.
Yeah. And also, Tal, you did a TED.com talk, and I hear you've had over 1 million hits on this, and you've had 180 people contact you from actual Marfan's patients. I mean,
yeah.
One interesting thing that I find sort of from talking to yourselves is that you actually probably would offer this a little bit earlier than an actual root replacement. I mean, what sort of size of root would you think a Marfan's patient maybe should think about this?
Speaking as a patient and an engineer, not as a clinician, I would say that as soon as an aorta has reached adult dimensions, has a nice functional valve, is nice and symmetrical, then that is the time to fix it in place with an external support. I note that when I was operated on at 47 and dilated to about centimeters, my size is at a horribly symmetrical. Thank God the valve still works fine, but clearly something as relatively quick as an operation as this one is, and relatively non-invasive, could be used prophylactically on younger patients, I think, with very, very good results.
And so Tom, what I mean, if a Marfan's patient came to you right now, or there's clinicians out there right now, I mean, do you think a clinician should be talking about a root replacement, a valve-sparing root replacement, and what this is, an excess stent? Do you think everybody should be discussed?
Yes, I think now that we are at this state of knowledge, and this is quite widely publicised, it's been in important journals and presented at the Marfan meetings and the cardiology meetings, for a patient to now have a total root replacement or a valve-sparing operation and never be aware of this possibility, I think is a bit concerning. It's widely known and should be available to them.
Well, I think it's phenomenal what you've done. It must be. I mean, life-changing is not the word, is it? Really, it's life-changing for many people. And I mean, what's your feedback been from other Marfan's patients? I imagine you've met quite a few of them.
I have a very special group of friends, part of an extremely select club, which I hope will become a very, very large club very quickly. But I think it's fabulous to see people have a less invasive operation. For example, 2 of our lady patients have had completely normal pregnancies and deliveries without any problems. To me, this is so much better an option for those of us who are truly asymptomatic and facing elective surgery. I feel passionately that patients should be made aware of this so that they can make a choice. Their choice is their business. If they choose total root replacement and a lifetime warfarin, that's their business. But I believe passionately they deserve to be given all of the information on all of the available treatments and make their own minds up. And really, you know, when you look at the data, particularly the reoperation rate for valve-sparing root replacement and the anti-coag for total root replacement, it's almost a no-brainer. You know, as a patient, you know, when I look at this now in retrospect, it is a no-brainer. Clearly for me it was slightly different because I was going to be the first patient, but with 45 done, it's well enough established now, I think that patients can look at this and say, well, it is an established technique, and it offers me a better quality of life and a shorter hospital stay for the treatment.
And you get a model of your route as well, to boot.
Well, yes, indeed, indeed.
Great. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic meeting you, and best of luck. You're going to do a talk to YACS later today,
Yeah.
and I hope lots of surgeons get to know about this, and hopefully they as well get in contact with you, because maybe they'll want to learn more and learn how to do the operation. So from myself, Joel Dunning, thank you very much. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you, Joel.